Good morning, ninjas. How is everybody today? Hope everyone's well out there. Real quick before we start, I just wanted to let you know that tomorrow we're going to be releasing a lot of new talks. The next couple of weeks, the talks are going to go on the website tomorrow. Make sure to check us out on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, to get all the updates and everything like that. We've also got a poll running in the group today. If you guys can answer the questions to help us figure out what topics you'd like to see next and what days work the best for you and all that. So without further ado, today's presenter comes all the way to us from the beautiful island nation of the Bahamas. She spent thousands of hours working in the field with sharks. She's also a marine biologist, a scuba instructor, an explorer, and a shark advocate. In 2013, she launched Sharks for Kids, is a program aimed at help creating the next generation of shark lovers and advocates through education, outreach, and adventure. So let's give a big warm welcome to Jillian. How are you today, Jillian?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. Let me stop my screen share so you can put your presentation up and we'll get started.
All right. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about just a general intro into sharks, what they are, a little bit about their anatomy, and some of the amazing adaptations they have, and finish off with why these animals are so important and how all of you can actually help save them. So just go ahead and share my screen. So as Jay mentioned, I am a marine biologist, and I've traveled all over the world to work with sharks, from catching and tagging sharks for various research projects, photographing and filming sharks. I've worked on a lot of TV shows and for books and magazines, swimming with sharks, diving with them, and now teaching students, just like hopefully some of you that are watching, all about these incredible animals. And when I tell people I work with sharks, a lot of times they think that sounds really amazing. Other times they think it sounds pretty scary. So I like to show this quick video. I do live in the Bahamas, and we have a lot of sharks there. It's actually the reason I'm based in the Bahamas is because if you want to study these animals, swim with them, spend time with them, it's really one of the best places in the entire world to do that. When I say I have sharks in my backyard, I mean it literally, which is pretty incredible. So these are subadult lemon sharks, which means they're kind of teenagers. And I just want you to watch. They're getting very close. And you'll see in a second, there's a lot of them. And you'll notice they're not trying to bite me or attack. They're just swimming around. You can see there's a lot of them. This applies for bigger sharks as well, like this great hammerhead, getting very close to us, not interested in me at all. And you'll notice I have a camera in my hands and some special equipment. We do use scuba diving equipment that allows me to breathe underwater and explore the ocean. It allows us to be down in their world, in their habitat, and to see where they're going. What are they doing? So the information I'm going to share with you today, we know because scientists, divers, people around the world have studied these animals, made observations, and used special tools to be able to study these animals, and this is one of them. But again, you see, these animals aren't attacking and biting. They're not man-eating monsters. They're actually incredibly important and really fascinating. And I hope today you can all be great junior shark scientists, or if there's some of you that are a little bit older, shark scientists, and make some observations about the things you're learning. Maybe there's a fun fact you can share with somebody else. Quiz your family, ask them some questions. Having a conversation about sharks is a really powerful tool for helping educate other people, so they're not so afraid. Again, these animals are not man-eating monsters, and the more of us that can be advocates and speak up, share facts, interesting things, and the truth about sharks, the more we're doing to help save these animals. All right, and so when people say shark, they have this idea of what it's supposed to look like. That white shark in the top middle. Streamlined, sort of torpedo body, a pointy nose, a big fin, and a really big animal. Right? That's what they think. But believe it or not, there are over 500 different species of shark. And you can see here, these are all sharks. And you might scratch your head a little bit and go, huh, wait a minute. Those do not look like sharks, but they are. And that's one of the most interesting things I think about sharks is just how different or diverse they really are. Right? So if you go down to the bottom right, you see a Greenland shark. They live in really deep, cold water near the Arctic. And these animals can do something pretty incredible. They can live at least 272 years, probably over 400, which is remarkable, right? These are some of the things that maybe you don't hear or see about sharks, right? So hopefully today, again, some fun facts. So possibly over 400 years, right? The one in the middle that you're probably thinking I made a mistake. Nope, it's a shark. It's called a wobbegong. Yep, a wobbegong, kind of a fun one to say. And they have amazing camouflage. They blend in with their surrounding. They hide out, they wait on the bottom for tasty treats to swim up close, making it easier to get lunch. On the top left, you have quite a small shark. These velvet belly lantern sharks, just over a foot, like half a meter, not even, in length, and they live very deep in the ocean. And deep sea animals have special adaptations or things that they can do, their bodies can do to help them survive. And this little shark actually has a glow-in-the-dark belly. So many species of deep sea sharks have the ability to glow or produce a light. Again, they can attract food, makes it easier to get lunch, also as a tool to communicate with each other. So when you think about sharks, a lot of times, again, that look of a great white, or we talk about the teeth and the fins, but I want you to think about other things, right? I want you to walk away with the diversity, the different types of sharks, the different things that they can do, the habitats they live in, because again, there's over 500 different species, and many of them are quite small, right? Yeah, that great white might be 5 or 6 meters in length, but there are many sharks that are far less than a meter in length, the smallest being one that you could hold in the palm of your hand. No matter how big a shark gets, it's also important to remember they start out as babies, just like we did. Right? So yeah, baby sharks, cue the song. Everyone's probably singing it now, or somebody's gonna start singing it. It's stuck in your head for the day. But yes, baby sharks called pups are born in a couple different ways I'm gonna talk about in a minute, but this is a baby nurse shark, only a few days old. This one's about 28 centimeters in length, and they're on their own. Right? Mom and dad sharks do not take care of their young. So we think of sharks as these giant ocean predators that rule the sea. Wrong. Yes, they might grow up and be apex predators at the top of the food chain, but they started out small and vulnerable. Right? But the interesting thing is this little shark can take care of itself. Right? It's like you shrunk mom and dad down. It can swim, it can hide out, it can find food, it can take care of itself. Definitely needs to hide out from other sharks or bigger fish. In the Bahamas, things like Goliath groupers, which are really large fish, like to eat these little sharks. But also think about plastic, pollution, overfishing. These are things that are affecting all marine life, including sharks. And even though we think sharks are really big and strong, these things are having an impact on them as well. All right, so one of the questions I get asked most is, well, what is a shark? Is it a mammal? Is it it's a sea creature? What exactly are they? So sharks are actually a type of fish. They're a cartilaginous fish. What that means is their skeleton is made of cartilage. If you guys all bend the top of your ear, it's really flexible, or the end of your nose, we have cartilage. Sharks do not have any bones in their body. Right? Their entire skeleton is made of cartilage. On the left there, you can see that's the inside of a shark fin. That's that cartilage. It's lighter than bone. It's also very, very flexible. Helps them move in their underwater environment. If we go to the outside of a fish, we see scales. On the right, if you look on the left, that's shark skin. And some of you may have felt shark skin before. If you have not, if you look at that photo, you're probably thinking, ooh, it looks really smooth. Their skin is actually incredibly rough, like sandpaper. And it feels like sandpaper because, believe it or not, it's covered in teeth. Tiny little microscopic teeth called dermal denticles. Right? This is a tiger shark, and we can see its skin up close and then up really close under a high-powered microscope. You can see the little points. These teeth are really strong. They help protect the shark. Think of it like the shark's suit of armor. They also make swimming easier. And if you're a shark, you want to be streamlined. You want to move through the water easily. If we look even closer, here we see a leopard shark. And you can see up close, they really do look like points, those little teeth. And each shark species has kind of a different size and shape. It's sort of a unique fingerprint. So if you had a piece of shark skin and you looked at it under a microscope, you could tell the species without having to see the entire animal. The last difference between sharks and other fish is fish spawn. They lay thousands and thousands of eggs. Sharks do not do this, right, in that same form. So they actually do lay egg cases, but spawning means the eggs and the sperm are outside the animal. Sharks actually copulate internally. So there's internal fertilization, so the baby develops, and then the female will lay an egg case. And a really fun thing to do is, if you go to the beach, is to look for these. You might find them washed up, and they would have had a little baby shark inside, or a skate, which is a flat shark, or their cousin. And you can see in that top right, there's a little baby shark in there with a yolk, just like a chicken egg. So it has nutrients, it has that hard case to protect it, but mom leaves it. She's not gonna sit and guard the egg cases like a chicken would sit on a nest. And she puts those under corals, under some rocks, and she's done. And depending on the species, a few months to an entire year later, those little babies will hatch out and they're on their own, even though they're very, very small. Now, I've mentioned a couple of times that sharks are diverse. They're different. And we saw that by just looking at a few. But this also applies to the methods they give birth. So some lay egg cases. Others actually give birth to live young. Lemon sharks like this one are born alive. They're connected to their mother with an umbilical cord, just like we were. So that little gray line you see by the arrow is actually a shark belly button. All right, another really great trivia question for your family, your friends, to kind of quiz them. Say, do sharks have belly buttons? They're probably gonna answer, no way, that's crazy. And you could teach them something. So it's really a scar from the umbilical cord. They won't have it their whole life, but it is pretty cool to see, and it can help us tell approximately how old that shark is, at least within the first year of its life. And this little lemon shark is alive. It's just flipped over in a sleep-like state we call tonic immobility. We do this when we're studying sharks. Sometimes we take a blood sample or insert a tag, and it just sort of puts them in that sleepy state. They're not aware of what's going on, makes it a bit easier to handle the animal, and makes it less stressful on them as well. All right, so just a few other parts that sharks have for life in the ocean. First up, male versus female. Very easy to tell. This also is the same with rays, the flat sharks. If you look at the underneath of the pelvic fins, think of where your hips are. Males have claspers. These are two extensions of those pelvic fins you can see on the right. They don't have those, it's a female. So if you're diving, snorkeling, or if you've been to an aquarium and a shark swims up and over, now you can impress everybody with your knowledge because you know how to tell a male from a female. Sharks do use gills to breathe. A little bit different than fish gills as far as the openings on the side of the body. The water goes in their mouth, moves along the gills, and comes out these openings. They'll have 5, 6, or 7. You may have heard sharks have to stay swimming to stay alive. Yes, there are species, they are ram ventilators. They have to have that forward movement to force the water in their mouth, right? So things like white sharks, makos, great hammerheads, they have to have that forward movement or just keep swimming their entire life, or they're unable to breathe. But the lemon shark on the top, nurse sharks on the bottom, many other species like that wobbegong I showed you, tiger sharks can do this, can buccal pump. They can actually suck the water in and move it over the gills. So all of these sharks are alive, they're just sort of having a bit of a rest on the bottom because they do not have to swim to breathe. If you look closer here, This is a lemon shark. These are the gill slits on the side as it's pumping the water. Opening and closing, just as though we were breathing in and out. And you can't talk about sharks without talking about teeth, right? So teeth are sometimes what people think seem really scary about sharks, but they're actually important. Sharks do not have hands or tools or fishing poles, right? They have their mouth, their teeth. That's how they catch their food and they eat it. You can think of this like built-in silverware, right? Sharks don't just get to go, oh, I'm having soup today, I'll use my spoon. Or let me cut up this piece of fish with a fork and knife. It's built in, right? Because that can help us figure out and look at what they might be eating, right? So the nurse shark on the top left, you can see tiny little teeth on this sort of hard plate. Think of your back teeth, your molars. If you were gonna break up a piece of candy, you'd slide it to the back and grind it. You wouldn't try and break it with your front teeth. Nurse sharks have a pretty awesome diet of conch, which is a really big snail, lobster, crab, small fish, and they're gonna grind those things up. The tiger shark down in the bottom left has serrations like a knife. They can actually saw through a turtle shell. Their diet is really broad. They eat anything from sea snakes and seabirds to even other sharks. The bottom right is a lemon shark, kind of long and thin like a fork for grabbing at fish. The top right is a cookie cutter shark. This little shark, about 1 meter or less in length, will swim up to a big whale, another shark, and take a chunk out. Looks like somebody took a cookie cutter, took a little plug of flesh. They don't eat the whole animal, but that's where they get their name. So you can kind of see the different shapes of the teeth on the top and the bottom, for one for gripping and one for kind of slicing through. Again, the silverware for sharks is built in. They're not mindless eating machines. They're actually designed to eat fairly specific things. Some sharks, a lot bigger range of items, but very specific design for what they're eating. And fins, all right? Another thing we have to talk about when we talk about sharks. Pectoral fins are sort of the arms, the steering wheel. They have a caudal fin, their tail fin at the back, anal fin underneath, those pelvic fins again we saw, and the dorsal fins, 1 or 2, the ones that stick up out of the water. No, they don't do that on purpose, but if they're swimming at the surface, it oftentimes does stick up. Now, when we think of fins, we think of swimming, but some sharks have fins that do other things. The thresher shark in the top left uses its fin like a big whip. They'll swim into a school of fish and ricochet that tail over the top of its head and snap, slowing the fish down, kind of stunning them, making it easier to get lunch. The nurse shark on the bottom right, they don't actually have the lower part of their caudal fin. They spend a lot of time in the bottom. So their body is designed to allow them to be on the bottom. And probably my favorite little shark that doesn't actually use its fins for swimming, this is an epaulet shark, right? The one that looks like a cartoon character in the middle. They're also known as a walking shark. They prefer to hop or walk along. There's tasty treats down in the corals, little snails and crabs, safe places to hide out. So it's really the perfect habitat for them. They don't need to swim up into the water column. Shark eyes, right? Very similar to ours, actually. Sometimes people say they have poor vision. No, sharks actually have excellent vision. They have rods and cones and very similar structures to our own eyes, if you see up on the top right. Right? So very, very similar. They do come in different shapes and sizes, and some are better at seeing at night than others. The position can also help how much they see. The nurse shark has a smaller eye. It does spend a lot of time under ledges where it would get scratched up if it had a large eye. The great hammerhead, the position of their eyes actually gives them a 360-degree field of vision, which is incredible. And a lemon shark, which you might think looks similar to a cat eye. Now, shark eyes are really important, as in all of their senses. And so one of the things that they can do to protect their eye is use a nictitating membrane. So if you watch this video, the tiger shark's gonna come up and look like it's winking at you as it approaches the camera. This is the safety goggles for sharks, because sometimes their lunch, there you go, it's gonna look like it's winking at you. Their lunch fights back, and they wanna protect their eyes. White sharks can actually roll their eye back. There's a big toothy grin from a great hammerhead. Again, those gill slits on the side pumping. And I want you to notice now, when this tiger shark comes up, it's got a lot of dots on its face that look like freckles. You'll also notice the shark didn't bite the camera, but it did come up and check it out. And the reason it came up was because of those dots that are actually really remarkable. They're filled with a gel-like substance. Sharks have the same 5 senses we do, but they have some extra ones, and this is one of them. This is sort of their shark superpower. That gel inside can actually feel the heartbeat of an animal. So the shark can swim along, scanning the bottom, and even if it can't see or smell or hear a stingray buried in the sand, when it gets close enough, it can actually feel its heartbeat. You can think of it as a built-in metal detector, but the shark's not looking for buried treasure or lost jewelry, it's trying to find lunch. And that little black dot, if we take an even closer look, those are not balls of string or yarn, those are actually the ampullae of Lorenzini. This is that Electro Reception, right? These little sensory systems that can pick up those tiny electrical pulses, right? Believe it or not, right now, all of us, as our heart is beating, we're giving off an electrical pulse. Every living thing is giving that off. So it's really an incredible tool for the sharks to use to find lunch. And again, you can see those dermal denticles. This is on the snout of a bonnethead shark, the smallest species of hammerhead. So again, those little black dots right there are actually like those balls of string. And sharks do have nostrils called nares, but they only use them for smell. So they swim along, they're not breathing through those, it's only water coming in, linking directly to one of the largest parts of their brain. Smell is very important for these animals. When they pick up a scent, something like a stingray, might be giving off a particular scent, they can actually start using those nares, and you'll notice they swim in an S-shaped pattern, in and out, moving along the scent trail until they can actually figure out where lunch is. All of their senses are incredibly strong. Sharks even have ears, can hear very, very well. They're tiny little dots in the head. They don't have the opening large outside part like we do. They do have ears. Again, there are no vending machines or restaurants. Sharks have to find all their own food, so having super powered senses is really, really important. These animals are found in every single ocean around the world, even in cold places, deep water, shallow water. And again, there are over 500 different species. And the really exciting thing is, every year new species of shark are being discovered. That means when you grow up, if you decide to be a shark scientist, you could discover a new species. There's so much about our oceans we just don't know, including all of these species that have never been seen before. This is also why we want to protect our oceans and take good care of them. They're really important for the entire planet, and there's so much that we have to learn. Now, sharks live in different habitats within the ocean. Seagrass beds, coral reefs, out in the open ocean or deep sea. Or in the Bahamas, we have a lot of mangroves. So these bushes that have their roots right down in the water. You can see that top left image. And the juvenile lemon sharks spend the first few years of their life there. It's really a nursery school for sharks, where it's a safe place to hide out. Believe it or not, they hang out with their best buddies. So they might hide with one friend and go hunting with another, but really, really important habitats. And just like you might go to different schools as you get older, or move to a different city or town, sharks can move from different habitats at different stages in their life. But no matter which habitat they're in, they play an important role. So sharks eat other animals. They are carnivores. And this is really, really important because it helps balance the food chain. It means there's not too many of one fish or not enough of another. Sort of think of them as managers of the coral reef or the ecosystem that they're in. If you remove sharks, then the animals that they eat, there are no predators, so their populations go up and up and up. Pretty soon, there's not enough food. So that level disappears. So it can affect the entire system, right? They also eat injured, sick, dying, dead animals, keeps the oceans clean and healthy and balanced. And you might not have thought about how sharks are important for you, but they actually are, because every single one of us is connected to the ocean no matter where we live. The food we eat, some of the oxygen we get comes from the ocean. Think of the products we buy at the store. Billions of people rely directly on the ocean, but indirectly from the products or the businesses we frequent. It's really, really important for all of us. So if we need healthy oceans and healthy oceans need sharks, it means we really need these animals swimming around. But unfortunately, many of them are endangered species. Humans kill about 100 million sharks every single year. They're killed for their fins, their meat, different parts of their body, like the oil, the cartilage are used to make beauty products, health products, souvenirs. And this just isn't happening. A lot of times people say, oh, the finning industry, that only happens in Asian countries. Wrong. This is happening everywhere. No matter where you live, you can probably find shark meat, shark fins, shark products, some form of shark. It can even be in dog treats. It's in a lot of makeup, dog food, cat food, and it's mislabeled as well. So white fish or catch of the day. So one of the things you can do is actually be aware of what the products you are that you're buying and using, right? So we know these animals are really, really important, and we know they're in trouble. So one thing is ask what the catch of the day is, right? If you eat seafood, find out what it is. Don't be afraid to ask, right? Make sustainable choices. Seafood that's fast growing, reproduces quickly, and has healthy stocks. That's one thing you can do. Avoid shark products. Look at what's in stuff. Squalene is the shark liver oil that's found in makeup and lipsticks and lotions. So checking that. Sharing some of the facts you learned today. Doing a little more research. Did you see a species on here that you found interesting? Maybe dive in and learn a little bit more. Do some research. Our Sharks for Kids website has lots of resources and activities and opportunities to learn a little bit more, and then share that with others, right? It's really, really important, because the more people that know about these animals, and you could do that by making a poster, a video, an art project, writing a song, doing a blog, lots of ways that you can actually spread a positive message. Or go swim with sharks. Right? If you're old enough to dive and snorkel, get in the water and see these animals. They really are incredible. And you'll see that fear slip away and become fascination, because they're truly remarkable, and there really is nothing else like them, and nothing else like being in the water with them. They're not man-eating monsters. But all of these things can really, really help, and especially having that conversation about these animals and sharing some fun facts. Right? And it might seem simple, but the more of us that are doing these things, the better their chances of surviving. Right. Stop share. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jillian. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great presentation. Shall we start with some questions? I'll read them out to you for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So Michelle asks, what shark is your favorite?
My favorite on the planet, my favorite animal on the planet is the great hammerhead. Let me see if I'm going to point. Okay, there we go. I'm kind of pointing over here. I got to figure out which way is the great hammerhead. They're really incredible. Sadly, they're a critically endangered species. And I'm really lucky in Bimini. It's one of the only places, probably the only place in the world that we know of, that you can actually dive with many of these. They're usually a solitary species, but in Bimini we've had 10, 11 on a dive, which is pretty incredible. So get to spend a lot of time with them, learn about them. They have unique personalities. A lot of people don't think of that when they think of sharks, but they do. They're kind of, some of them are really bold and some are shy, and so we get to know them. They're named. The local research station, the Shark Lab, has named them, so we can recognize them. And yeah, they have some of them have very distinct personalities, and before you even see them up close, the way they're moving towards the dive line, you know who it is. So just being able to be around that animal and hopefully sharing information and learning more and spreading a positive message means that they won't become extinct, because critically endangered is the next step, is going extinct. And this is a real threat for these animals. This isn't something that might happen. it is happening. And, but the wonderful thing is there's a lot we can still do. So it's not giving up and we're discouraged. There's a lot we can do to help these incredible animals.
Awesome. Yeah, and Bimini is an incredible place. The great hammerheads there, it's hands down one of the best experiences in the world to be so close to so many of them and being such a rare species. It is beautiful out there. Amazing. Definitely recommend getting out there to anyone tuning in today. Cool. So next question we have is Sophia asks, what is the webpage with the kids' activities? I can put the Sharks for Kids link into the chat right now so everyone has it.
Great. Yeah, it's sharks, the number 4, kids.com, but Jay will type it in. We're also doing webinars that are kind of designed specifically for kids for the next at least 4 weeks. But we also have activities, curriculum, teaching guides, lesson plans. And when school is in session, we also do Skypes with whole classrooms and things like that. So definitely have an explore of the website and feel free to contact us if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Teresa asks, how does a lemon shark disconnect with its mother when it's giving birth?
Well, there are no doctors or nurses. So it comes out, I've been lucky enough to see a lemon shark give birth to 10 beautiful baby pups. Probably the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. She swims up on a high tide way up into the mangroves, to the same mangrove she was born in, just like salmon return. So goes back, gets in really shallow, and they spiral out, and they just kind of spiral and have to twist and turn until it breaks off. And then they're kind of swimming around a little bit, and then it's like you flip a switch and they become a shark, and they immediately start looking for food and a place to hide out, and they have to get back in those mangroves because larger sharks, especially other lemon sharks, will actually make a meal of those babies. So they've got life starts very quickly, and they immediately have to, be on edge and be ready and get to a safe place, those nursery habitats. That's why the mangroves are so critical for so many young species, juvenile species, not just sharks.
That's amazing. It's an incredible way to start life right there. It's unbelievable to start with such a jumping right into it head first.
Trial by fire, exactly.
Awesome. So Sina asks, how can someone with a background far from any kind of marine science make a move towards working with sharks or other marine life?
So yeah, I actually get this question a lot because I think it's one of those things that marine science and marine biology is, yeah, you want to save the world, and then you go, how do I get a job? What do I do? And it's challenging, it's competitive. I think the biggest thing you can do is, obviously, if you want to go back to university and get a degree, that's the very obvious, easy one. But if maybe that's not possible for you, or you're not interested in going to that level, find out if there's a local organization you can volunteer with. That could be a turtle program, corals. If you're not a diver, learn how to dive, because there's a lot of citizen science programs, anything from fish ID to coral planting. Depending on where you are, there's like seal and sea lion rehabilitation centers that you can volunteer and help. Different aquariums have programs where you can come in and get involved. So there are definitely opportunities. You don't have to have that degree and that title and that experience. There's some great opportunities to get started because organizations always need help. They always need passionate people that want to get involved. And it's really just your time and your interest and your passion. So yeah, there's a couple of different routes, but there's definitely opportunities.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, nowadays too, with the influx of citizen science programs and these things, I mean, with us at Dive Ninjas, we try to do a lot of the citizen science projects and working with different research programs and conservation to give people a way to be able to get involved without, say, being a marine scientist, be able to bring their passion to somewhere to be able to get involved in everything like that.
And it's amazing and it's important. And, you guys joining a trip like that is great. With the Dive Ninjas, the Shark Lab here in Bimini has research experience. We're offering a trip for people next summer to come in and do a week worth of shark science, to participate, to actually be a shark scientist for a week. So there are definitely those trips and opportunities as well. It might only be a week, but you're going to get an incredible hands-on experience that is contributing to a better understanding of these animals.
That's incredible. It's super awesome. Okay, Valerie asks, she says, not a question, but thank you so much for this. My 5-year-old nephew Marco is watching this from Virginia while I'm here remote watching with him in Mexico. He would like to know if all sharks are carnivorous.
They are. So bonnet heads, which are those small hammerheads that I mentioned, the smallest species, they have found seagrass in their stomachs. So could be a small part of their diet. But even things like whale sharks that are filter feeders are eating small bits of plankton, so bits of small animal as well. So yes, they are carnivorous as a whole. What that actually is, whether it's a fish or a bird or a turtle or other sharks, varies quite a bit. But yes, they are a carnivorous animal.
Awesome. Then Sue asks, what is the largest known shark that has ever lived? Is it the infamous Megalodon? And how big were they? And what did they eat?
So the largest species we know that has existed was the Megalodon. It's been extinct for almost 3 million years. I know there was a show on TV and there's questions about maybe they're still lurking, but using fossil records, we know they went extinct nearly 3 million years ago. About 60 feet, so what, 18 meters or so, just under, and ate larger like whales and large mammals. They were a shallow water shark. Sometimes people ask if they were, they might be still in the deep. They were a shallow water species, and very interesting, but there could be a fossil out there of a tooth of a larger shark. We just don't know. Again, that's what's so interesting about sharks is there's new species live that are being discovered, but then fossil records showing us the history of these prehistoric sharks as well.
That's amazing. It's incredible how many new species we're still finding in the ocean on almost like constantly. Like it's like every other day you see something new coming out that they've just found or anything like that. It's amazing. So someone asks, anonymous asks, which shark do you recommend diving with for the first time?
It really depends on your dive level as well as how comfortable you are in the water. So if you're an experienced diver, I think then, something, you can start out with a smaller animal. Nurse sharks are always kind of great because they're pretty, mellow. And a lot of times if you're diving anywhere in the Caribbean, you're probably going to see a nurse shark anyway. They're very, very common. And so that's kind of a great lead in. But really, if you're working with a reputable operator that leads shark dives, things like there's some amazing Caribbean reef sharks dives in the Bahamas, where essentially you just kind of sit on the bottom and watch the show. It's this beautiful live aquarium and crystal clear water in front of you. Then there are some that, as you get more advanced, kind of Cocos and Galapagos, where you're dealing with strong currents, lots of animals, and actually the conditions that have nothing to do with the sharks can be challenging. So it really depends kind of on your dive level as well, but definitely loads of opportunities. Even the Hammerhead dive in Bimini, it's 5 to probably 8 or 9 meters, really, slightly deeper if the weather's a bit rough, and you sit on the bottom and you watch, and the feed happens, the sharks are moving around you. It's amazing, but you're just sitting there and taking it all in. You don't have to do anything particularly strenuous or so dives like that where you're sort of sitting in fairly shallow water are great for even fairly new divers. My mom did that on like her 11th dive ever, and it was great. And I would never have taken her in if I didn't feel like it was comfortable, and she was awesome. And now she does it every year. So yeah, it's things like that. And as Jay said, Bimini is spectacular. The dive it's not like anything else you'll see.
It really is. It's become our new love with Dive Ninjas, is our second love to Baja. And after we started running projects there just last year, and now it's been, we're there every couple months now going back and everything. It's my second favorite place in the world to Baja. It's just incredible for big animals. Beautiful place. And speaking of Bimini, Teresa had asked if there was a link for the 1 week scientist program you were speaking about.
Yes, I can actually pull it up and put it in the chat. Just bear with me 1 second because I should be able to type that in. Let me just put that in for you. And again, it's right on our website. So it's kind of designed for, it says teachers, the idea is it's also to give them a hands-on experience, but we actually have quite a few people that are joining us that are not teachers, but are just really interested in learning about sharks and the experiences. So yeah, definitely have check that out.
That's awesome. Perfect. Thank you very much. And then Travis asks, do tiger sharks eat their siblings in the womb?
So sand tiger sharks do. And they actually have one uterus on each side, the females, and they will start eating their brothers and sisters, and then kind of the strongest will survive. When you see baby sharks, they come out perfectly formed. They're a shark. They're just a mini version because they're in the female for a long amount of time. Many species 10 to 12 months, some even longer. So they're fully developed and ready to go. And so it's sort of survival of the fittest before their life in the ocean even starts. So yeah, that does happen. It happens with other species as well. That one's probably the most significant. Others will actually eat the undeveloped eggs, whereas sand tigers actually eat their siblings that are moving around, like developed, not just an egg.
Wow, and amazing. And Chris asks, where's your favorite location to dive?
I have to say the Bahamas. Bimini, I mean, most of these photos you guys can see were taken in Bimini or all in the Bahamas, and we can be with lemon sharks, tiger sharks, hammerheads, bull sharks, reef sharks. It's really amazing to just go, what do you want to dive with today? And then go. We're really spoiled, and the Bahamas luckily it's a shark sanctuary, so it's illegal to catch and kill sharks. They're protected there. And it's probably the shark diving capital of the world. More people go there to swim with sharks than anywhere else. So again, that's really why I'm based there, is just because it's an ideal spot to have access to these animals reliably year round. Some are migratory, like the great hammerhead, so they leave during the kind of spring, summer months. But for the most part, I mean, year round, we have access to sharks, which is absolutely amazing.
It's incredible. And the amount of species that actually transit through the Bahamas in different times of year in different areas and everything. And for those that don't know, the Bahamas is like a kind of shining star when it comes to shark ecotourism. They basically almost like paved the way. The amount of money that goes into from shark tourism that's going into the economy there and these kind of things is mind-blowing. It's a really great example of how well shark conservation can work and shark tourism can work for conservation and these kind of things.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, there's always challenges with sanctuaries and marine protected areas because it's a vast area to police. But yeah, as far as research being done, education, conservation work, and yeah, it's generating nearly $114 million US a year from tourism. Yeah, from people coming. And it's not just the dive shops. It's, the family that owns a restaurant, a souvenir shop, the hotels. People spend other money on the island, so the entire community really benefits. And in the Bahamas, fishing and tourism are really the main economic staples. So those are what's available for people and their livelihoods. So that's a huge part. And so the sharks are keeping the fish stocks balanced and healthy, and then they're generating huge amounts of tourism. So in the Bahamas, I mean, these animals are worth far more alive than dead, and they see the value of that. That's why they're protected.
Amazing. And I've got one for you from Lauren that she asked, do sharks really eat people?
They do not. So unfortunately, sharks have a bad PR team, right? So news articles, crazy movies, and it doesn't even have to be the crazy movies. I'd like to believe that people realize Sharknado is not possible, but things like Jaws or 47 Meters Down had aspects that were real. I mean, people go cage diving. They are in scuba, they're doing these things. So the problem with those is that they create this fear around an animal that has pointy teeth and can be big, and the ocean is a really vast place. And bites happen, they're very rare. On average, about 5 people die from shark bites in the world each year. And yeah, so they're not swimming around eating people. The bites cause injuries. Obviously, our skin's pretty soft and squishy. So yeah, it doesn't take much to break that. So yeah, injuries are unfortunate. Bites are always unfortunate, especially if there's a casualty, but they're very, very rare. And you compare that to the 100 million sharks we're killing, it makes you realize that we're far more of a threat to sharks than they are to us.
Exactly, very well said. And it's, when you look at the numbers, it's just incredible. I mean, you have higher chances of basically getting attacked by a toaster or a refrigerator than you do for a shark. It's unreal, you know, unreal. So Lauren also asks, how long is a great white shark?
So the average size is probably about 5 to 6 meters. Yeah, probably a little shy of 6 meters. So anywhere from about 15, 16 feet. You do have the, you know, the occasional one that's, you know, 6.5 meters. You're approaching, I think, 20 feet, 19, 20 feet. But so they can get bigger. We're just, all of these maximum lengths you see for all species of sharks, sadly, they're not reaching those lengths anymore because they're not able to grow that long. You know, great whites in particular, females have to be 33 years old to reproduce. Males have to be 25. So they have to survive all that time in order to be able to reproduce. So you're talking about a long-living animal, but if they're not given that opportunity, we're not seeing those lengths be reached. So yeah, they could, you know, get bigger. I think hammerhead's a great hammerhead, 20 feet. You're not going to see a 20-foot hammerhead anymore. It's just, or they're hiding out and surviving, and we're not going to see one. So great, that's better for that animal. But yeah, our baseline or kind of average size of thing has been shifting because of the impact we're making on the oceans.
Awesome. So Alexander asks, how old do you have to be to dive with sharks?
It depends. So for scuba diving, it kind of depends on the agency that you're working with. They have sort of bubble blowers and junior diving, anywhere from 8 to 10, and then you can get your junior open water. But there are places that you can go snorkeling, again, with like nurse sharks for opportunities to see those sharks or smaller species. So it really depends on kind of where you are, what the opportunities are available. But as far as, I would say there are probably nurse shark snorkels in different areas of the world that are designed for all ages. I saw my first shark. I went snorkeling when I was 8 and saw a nurse shark. It wasn't a shark dive, but I got to swim with it, and it was incredible and probably changed my whole, you know, that was it. That was the shark love from there on out. And so yeah, there's definitely, even if you're younger, doesn't mean you have to wait super long. There are opportunities. It just depends on where in the world you're going to go to find them.
Awesome. And Andres asks, where do whale sharks live? Do they live in the deep or the shallow waters?
So they can dive deeper, but most of the time we're seeing them is shallow water when they're feeding. So they're coming up to the surface to feed on plankton blooms. And you'll see them right at the surface, fins sticking up, you know, cruising right along, which are opportunities for when divers get to go and snorkel and swim with them in different parts of the world. They are kind of tropical seas, temperate seas, so anything from the west coast of Australia through the Philippines, the Gulf of Mexico, you know, down through. So they're quite a widespread animal, capable of diving deeper, but spending a lot of time as well, probably deeper as they're migrating. But then you're going to see them in very shallow at the surface when they're feeding.
Awesome. And Lauren asks, why does blood attract sharks?
So we actually have done experiments in Bimini where we put human blood in the water with lemon sharks and Caribbean reef sharks, and they're not attracted to it. The reef sharks actually had a really pronounced swim away from it. They can smell it, absolutely. They have an incredible sense of smell, but it's just like if you smell a big can of rotting fish, it doesn't really make you hungry. You can smell it. It's probably making you feel a bit sick, but things like fresh baked cookies or bread, that smells like food. So just because we smell things doesn't mean it registers as food for us. It's the same with all animals. So yeah, they can smell human blood, but at least for, you know, the species we work with, it doesn't seem to be an attractant. There's not enough of it in the water for them either. And most species are not actually feeding on mammals similar to us. So, I mean, there are species that eat seals and sea lions, but very, very different blubbery sort of sea animal with different scents and different blood types. So yeah, it's not really an attractant. It's one of those things one of those great myths that we hear about sharks, and people are afraid.
Right, exactly. I think it's one of the things. I remember watching the documentary on that, the the video of the project with the human blood in the water is incredible to see. They're just like the running off basically. Like they're like, no, we don't want this. You know, reminds me when there's like you leave something in the garbage a little too long or something like that.
Yeah, there's a real obvious, like they're just not, and they would if they wanted to. I mean, they would come up and grab that, and they don't. But then fish blood, on the other hand, definitely attracts sharks. They can smell it. It smells like food. They know it's food, and they come in and check it out.
All right. So speaking of which, Olga asks, what do you think of chumming operations, and have you found that it modifies any of the shark's natural behaviors?
So I think it depends on the operator. So I've been really lucky to dive around the world with different shark dives that are from just a bait box to hand feeding. And it needs to be done professionally, safely, but safely not only for people, but also for the animal. And I think there are operators that are doing that, and there are operators that are not. So it really depends on, you want to do your research and find out how they're treating the animals. And yes, it is one of the studies that a guy at the lab is doing right now is actually looking at the long-term impact of the provisioning or the feeding sites with the hammerheads. Are they arriving earlier? Are they staying later? How much are they eating? And so, yeah, it definitely is altering their behavior. They are coming to a specific site. They've learned that. These animals are incredibly smart. You can teach them to push buttons, open boxes, swim through mazes. They're not mindless eating machines. They're intelligent, and they learn very quickly. They can recognize individuals, recognize boats, a specific bait box. So yes, is it altering their behavior in some ways? Yeah, but they're not getting enough food where they can't not go hunt and still have to find other food sources. So it's not like you just have a big puppy dog that's only relying on that, and if you stopped it, they would die because they forgot how to hunt food. But yeah, we are seeing that it does impact their behavior. But my opinion is that overall, if it increases our awareness and understanding of a species, and we then create more people fighting for sharks and making more sustainable choices from the products they buy to the way they vote, then it's a success. So, I'm a big proponent of shark diving when done with respectful, practices for the animals. And I think it can really change people's understanding of sharks and be really powerful.
No, I completely agree there. And I've seen, like you said, there's many different types of operators and different ways of doing things, but the ones that are doing it right, I think it's an incredible way moving forward and everything like that, and exposing more people to sharks, letting them see them and see that they're not these man-eating monsters and all this kind of stuff. And the research being done at the Mini Shark Lab right now towards that is very interesting. I look forward to it. We go out there in December with them to run a shark research experience, and really, really looking forward to learning more about it and the research they're doing out there with it. Really interesting. So Anonymous asks, how hard is cage diving?
It's really not hard at all. You don't have to be a certified diver, which is why it's wonderful. You just use a hookah system, which is a tank of air on the boat. That's on the boat. Then you just have the tube in your mouth and you breathe into that. You wear a lot of weights, so you can sit down in the cage. And it's awesome. I mean, it's incredible. It's great because people of all ages, most boats I think have an age limit of like 10 or 11. But yeah, you get to be in the water it's usually done with great whites, and just what an incredible animal to see. So very, very easy to do. Do not have to be a diver. So it opens the opportunity for a lot more people. And most of the boats, you've got your wetsuit, they have all the gear for you. You bring your own mask, which you want to have anyway, so it fits your face properly. But awesome. And for people just starting out, you don't have to be an experienced shark diver or anything. It's just anyone will appreciate that. Anyone can do it. And wow, it's amazing.
It really is. When I first went for the first time, I, to be honest, did not want to go. I was like so used to diving with them in natural and in the wild and these things. And I was like, something about being stuck in a cage just doesn't sound very exciting. But in the first 5 minutes of being in the water with the great whites and with the cage diving, it was mind blowing. Like, unbelievable to see such a beautiful creature so close and everything like that. And even more amazing to see a lot of people on the boat that are not maybe hardcore divers or shark divers and these things being able to also experience that. And I found that amazing. to see on the boat, that there was so many people that like, they weren't even really scuba divers. There was just something they really wanted to experience, and it just changed their whole, you know, view of sharks in the world and everything like that.
Yeah, it's incredible those opportunities exist. And I think they're really, really important. I mean, they're fun, they're interesting. I mean, it's just seeing the sheer size, but they're also really, really important. And again, you know, if you're selecting it, you want to select an operator that's respectful of the animals, safety for the animals, and, you know, make sure that's a really, really important thing. I think sometimes people forget is that you want safety for the animals as well. So.
Awesome. And then Andres asks, how long was the Megalodon in length?
Yeah, so again, about 60 feet, so not quite 20 meters. It's everything we know is kind of based on the teeth that are found, the fossil teeth that are the size of my hand, and because there's no skeleton, because there's no bones. So it's not like a dinosaur where they can piece it together and figure out a bit more. It's really a big puzzle that you're trying to solve with one piece.
Awesome. Michelle asks, which shark is the most aggressive?
So I am always hesitant to use that word because they're wild animals. Any animal can be aggressive. If you've ever gone to a park and fed birds or ducks with some bread, they can start getting aggressive with each other, right? So it just seems to be a natural word that we use with sharks. But if you step back and think about it compared to other animals, they're wild animals. If there's food introduced in a situation and they're fighting, just like if there's 10 of you and I put down 4 pieces of pizza, there's probably going to be a fight. Some people are going to get aggressive. So yeah, it's just it's that mindset. If we can change that mindset. So I think there are definitely sharks. Bull sharks tend to be a little bit more unpredictable as far as my background's actually in behavioral biology. So looking at animal behaviors and why they do what they do. And yeah, bull sharks tend to be a little bit more unpredictable as far as reading their behavior or why they're behaving in a certain way. They sort of change their mind just because. Doesn't seem to be as obvious. Whereas other species, you can sort of watch the mood change, something has happened, there's a reason why we're watching their posture, their swimming movements change. So there are definitely species that can tend to be, you know, a bit more bold as well, but it really depends on the shark. But hopefully, you know, by learning about them and realizing is just, they're wild animals. They deserve our respect, but they're surviving. They're fighting to survive. That's their daily goal, is to find food and survive.
Oh, awesome. So Brianna asks, what changes have you seen within sharks and marine ecosystems as a result of the current climate crisis?
So they're not immune to it. We're seeing certain fish that are migratory, maybe a bait fish that's moving. One thing in particular is in Florida, the blacktip migration, because of the temperature change, they're not seeing as many, they're not coming as far south. And so you're seeing it affect migration patterns, the time of year, how long they're staying in an area, because if you think about it, if their food source isn't arriving at a certain time, they're not going to be there. Or if they do and their food's not there, or their food source is moving closer inshore or offshore, so where these animals are going. So yeah, we're absolutely seeing it make an impact, particularly on migratory species, because they're driven by a lot of climate and temperature changes are what's driving movements and affecting their movements.
Awesome. And someone else adding to that one, someone else had asked is, like, for instance, is plankton for whale sharks decreasing or increasing? And does the temperature affect the breeding cycles or the sex of the offspring of sharks?
Yeah, so I mean, you are seeing, again, it's even plankton, the tiniest animals, they'll be affected by it as well, because a lot of these animals they're you know, when they're spawning or coming to the surface is based on cues from temperature. So if those cues are changing, it's affecting the whole cycle. And absolutely, I mean, if animals are reproducing during a certain time of year based on a temperature, and that's, you know, say nurse sharks tend to be in June, that's when they tend to mate. If that's then changing because it's temperature dependent, then that's going to change the season of their offspring, their movement patterns, which could in turn, if you see tiger sharks move to a certain area and turtles, because of the turtle season, all of a sudden there's a lot of turtles or baby turtles hatching, and then they're not there. It's affecting the entire system. Or if tiger sharks are a top predator in one particular ecosystem and then they're late arriving there, it's not just the system they left, it's the system they go to, especially with these migratory species. They're impacting multiple systems in multiple locations, and that's where we're seeing the impact. So absolutely, the birthing, the times can be affected by when they're giving birth, and which could maybe then when all those pups are born, now there's a large predator that's in the area that normally wouldn't be because of, so, and I think we're going to see more of it.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but it's incredible to see how much of it is being affected in top to bottom. It's like not just one piece of bitter piece of it and everything like that. It's a much more complicated issue than a lot think it is. Okay, so 2 more questions we have. Julia asks, does it happen often that larger sharks eat smaller sharks?
Absolutely. So tiger sharks, bull sharks will eat smaller sharks. Big lemon sharks will eat smaller lemon sharks. Great hammerheads eat black tips. Also southern stingrays, or eagle rays, they're flat shark cousins. So yeah, that does happen. All
right. And Adil asks, how can I come work and help out the shark species on the front lines?
So again, it really depends on your background, but there are a lot of opportunities to volunteer and get involved. Going on these research-based trips, you can also look at the Shark Lab takes volunteers, long-term volunteers, other places like the Cape Eleuthera Institute, the South African Shark Conservancy. So depending on where you are and where you're looking to go, also there are costs to these things, so your budget to be able to do these. But there are definitely hands-on experiences, volunteering for NGOs, conservation groups, and then if you're already in marine science or conservation, then maybe you're working with turtles now, or you want to cross over. Again, volunteering is a great way to get your foot in the door, to get started, but also finding about citizen science projects and finding what you could do to make your dives count. Anything from cleaning up debris to doing fish counts, coral planting, things like that, which coral planting healthy ecosystems support sharks. So it is all interconnected. It doesn't have to necessarily just be, I want to study sharks. It can be a lot of other aspects that you could be involved with that benefit ecosystems as a whole. But the biggest thing, that anybody can do is to talk about these animals, share facts, share the reality, encourage your kids to learn more, do activities, read a shark book. If you're a parent at home right now with kids, there's some great shark books out there. Have a read, enjoy that, and learn a little bit yourself as well, because the more conversations we're having about these animals that are fact-based, the more people are aware of what's going on and the better decisions everyone is making for sharks in the oceans.
Awesome. So I start with one last question before we go. What is the most interesting shark fact that you love so much? What is your favorite, most interesting shark fact?
I think probably that some sharks can glow. I think that's just glow-in-the-dark sharks. I think that's incredible. And then also the pocket shark, which is a little tiny shark that has pockets that actually can squirt out a glowing liquid. Oh, wow. That is got to be one of the coolest things in the animal kingdom. A newly discovered species. Just how cool is that? Glowing and little pockets on an animal that squirts out a liquid. They do so many incredible things. There's so much more to these animals than just their teeth. So those, I think, are my absolute favorite at the moment. I'm always finding new ones, but I think those are really interesting.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming by today and talking with us and teaching us all about sharks. Thank you so much. Guys, make sure to check out sharksforkids.com. The link's in the chat and everything like that. They have some really incredible webinars coming up, plus lots of awesome activities for the kids and information and everything. So definitely check that out too. Tomorrow, like I said, we'll be announcing adding some more presentations to the schedule. Tomorrow, we're back here at 10 a.m. Pacific time with Liz Parkinson, another shark advocate, to follow out with our Women's Shark Week. So make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dive Ninjas. And thank you so much, Jillian, again. Have a wonderful day. It was great seeing you, and see you guys soon in Bahamas.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone that joined. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.